We're staying away from that guy for some reason. I don't know why, but it's day 2 of CES coverage. We're gonna be talking about what we should expect from AMD tomorrow with their keynote, because they have a lot of stuff going on. So I wanted to go through that today, especially since we won't be able to do an outdoor photo shoot tomorrow when they're done with their keynote, since it'll be nighttime here in South Africa. We don't want to go outside and record at night with animals. I hope you understand. Anyways, we'll do that one in the office, but we're talking today about what we are going to expect from AMD's keynote tomorrow, after I tell you that today's video is brought to you by FreshBooks, my friends. My friends, starting a small business is no easy feat, but FreshBooks makes it easier for you. You go through a lot of late nights, especially with a channel like this. We go through a whole bunch of itemizing, receipts here, invoices to sponsors like FreshBooks. We have to do that, but FreshBooks makes it easier. FreshBooks invoicing and accounting software is designed specifically for small businesses. It's simple, it's intuitive, and keeps you way more organized than, you know, like just stuffing your receipts in a drawer on the side of the office that I never want to touch. You can create and send professional looking invoices in 30 seconds and then get them paid 2 times faster with automated online payments. And then expenses, even easier, filing the taxes, unlike last year where I had to sit down and file taxes for like a whole day. I had to set aside 12 hours for it. Not what you're gonna do with FreshBooks. And the best part, FreshBooks grows alongside your business, making sure that you have access to all the features that you need. So join the 24 million people who've used FreshBooks. Try it for free, 30 days, no catch, no credit card required. You don't need to input anything. You can do that at the link in the video description. You can go to freshbooks.com/UFD Tech and enter UFD Tech in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Again, that's freshbooks.com/UFD Tech. And with that spot out of the way, let's get closer to the animals. Not too close, because they're butting around and we don't want to mess with them. We want to be respectful of the wildlife. This is like a nature park, so we're not outside of our boundaries here. So AMD has already announced a few things at CES, mostly in the mobile sector. We got the 3700U unveiled and the lower variants. They're claiming that it's going to be 20 to 30% better than the Intel equivalent of the like i7-8550U, which is 4 cores and 8 threads. It looks like that's what we're going to be getting with the Ryzen ones as well. So that's all fine and dandy. If the price matches up, that'll be great. We'll have to see if many notebooks adopt it. That's been the biggest struggle that we've had with the Ryzen Mobile, is not the fact that it's not good technology, it's the fact that it's not really adopted by any OEM manufacturer to put in that many laptops, which could be AMD's fault, it could be Intel's fault, it could be Nvidia's fault, it could be a whole host of different reasons of why they get blocked out of the market. But hopefully 2019 might be the year that we actually get good mobile components from AMD. But that's not why we're talking today. Today, we're gonna be talking because we have high hopes for the desktop CPUs and high hopes for the desktop GPUs, because yesterday, Nvidia announced the RTX 2060, I want to say 3060, the RTX 2060 coming in at $350, and based on the reviews that came out, which it's kind of weird that like 6 hours after the keynote that reviews were already out and I hadn't even heard of it at that point, and several other reviewers didn't even know that they were coming out. That's neither here nor there. It does look like for $350, it makes sense to buy new, which is a good thing coming out of Nvidia. It doesn't make sense as an X60 class GPU. If you don't consider this budget or low end and you consider it a mid-range card, then it's fine. $350 for a mid-range card doesn't scream expensive, but when you consider the 60 class was always supposed to be more budget, then it's a little bit of a problem. But we're hoping, at least according to all of the rumors that we've seen floating around on the internet, that we might get some news either about Vega 2 or Navi tomorrow. And some people might think that Vega 2 could just be Navi. It's the Navi architecture with a Vega brand name. I don't think AMD is going to do that. That would be branding suicide at this point, especially with how poorly Vega was received. I'm expecting that Vega 2 is either going to be its own gaming iteration, which is supposed to keep us placated for the first half of this year until Navi is ready till the second half, or it's going to be something that's only for the high-end cloud compute, more data center oriented things, and that Navi is going to be exclusively for gamers, which we're expecting that to be announced, something for gamers according to GPUs, especially with all of the statements that Lisa Su has made about how they are going to be bringing next-gen CPUs and great desktop gaming graphics to CES. That's what we're expecting from them. So according to the leaks that we have seen, we might be able to see something like a $250, $300 graphics card coming out from AMD, more than likely based on Navi, that's going to compete with an RTX 2070, which it's going to be $300, but it's going to have a smaller die, which that's a lot of the cost that Nvidia has to put into their more expensive chips. And then it's also not going to have ray tracing cores or tensor cores. So the reason it can cost less than an RTX 2070 is because it doesn't have all of these extra bits and bobs that the RTX 2070 does in order to increase its production cost. AMD, with its 7 nanometers, which is what we're expecting the next gen GPUs to be based off of, is going to get more performance out of less. And that's what we're hoping is going to come out. So RTX 2070 level performance for about $250 to $300. Then we're expecting RTX 2060 level performance at about $200. And that's supposed to compete, that's supposed to beat the Vega 56, it's supposed to have 8 gigabytes of GDDR6 and be based on the Navi architecture. Again, the reason that they can come in $150 cheaper than Nvidia is the fact that they're lacking certain features that Nvidia has in their cards, but still can give us the same gaming performance off of their 7 nanometer architecture. And then there's also rumors of a $130 GPU that's supposed to compete with the RX 580, RX 590, somewhere in there. And then it replaces the 1060 as well. And that's, I mean, $130 and you get the most widely used gaming GPU that's out on the market right now. So that's on the gaming GPU end. That's something that's pretty exciting if it actually comes to pass. Unfortunately, it's, oh, there's ostriches. Yeah. Sorry. Let's get closer to them. Unfortunately, it's not confirmed. There's not a whole lot of leaks that have come out with model numbers and part numbers with regards to that. But the thing that we should be heavily anticipating is that all of this will be announced tomorrow and not something that's actually going to be released anytime in the near future. Like I mentioned, it doesn't seem like Navi is going to be ready until sometime in the second half of 2019. So even if they're going to announce it tomorrow, it's going to be something that they preliminarily show. They probably won't show off a finished card design, just something that's in a computer backstage, and we get a whole bunch of, you know, demos for that. Let's say hi to the zebra, everybody, before we talk about CPUs. Hi, Mr. Zebra. Bye, Mr. Zebra. Okay, so now let's talk about CPUs as we make our way to the ostriches. This is the biggest thing that I think a lot of people are anticipating. There have been further leaks besides the Adore TV one about the CPUs that we're kind of expecting from AMD in just a couple of days. There have been some leaked product numbers that don't look like they come from the current Zen lineup. They're more likely based on the Maltese. We did have that leak from the Russian retailer that showcased that the 3800X might be a reality. But as I said when we covered that in Hot News, I'm not necessarily sure that the Russian retailer one was a legitimate leak. And just to refresh your memory of what we're expecting from the new Ryzen 3000, the 3300 is supposed to come in at $100, 6 cores, 12 threads. It'll effectively replace the current Ryzen 5s, have a 3.2 gigahertz base and a 4 gigahertz boost with a 50 watt TDP, which is quite impressive. Then when we go up to Ryzen 5, we're looking at a 3600, which will have 8 cores and 16 threads, which is the same as Intel's top of the line processor at this point. And that should come in at $179, $180, somewhere in that $200 region. 3.6 gigahertz base, 4.4 gigahertz boost, and a 55 watt TDP. With the entry level 3700 coming in with a base clock of 3.8 gigahertz and a boost clock of 4.6 at the $300 price point. And then we're also anticipating that just like Intel did where they released an i9, it looks like AMD is also going to release a Ryzen 9, which is the 3800X, 16 cores and 32 threads, which is a Threadripper based CPU type class processor is what I'm trying to say, and it's going to be on the AM4 socket with a 3.9 gigahertz base, 4.7 gigahertz boost, and a $450 price point, which is incredibly cheaper than what the current Threadrippers are going for. It's incredibly cheaper than what Intel is selling their 8-core 16-thread CPU for. And the performance seems like it might be too good to be true, except for when you consider 7 nanometers is coming into the equation. These things are supposed to be smaller. The architecture of how AMD is doing things with Zen 2 is a little bit different. It looks like, based on the Zen 2 CPUs that have already come out, even if we're not getting these CPUs from AMD. And what we're gonna get is an 8-core 16-thread CPU at the top of the range for Ryzen 7, and that's gonna boost up to over 5 gigahertz. It looks like with Zen 2, the IPC should actually match Intel in this instance, so they'll at least go 1-to-1. But if we take the leaks from Adore TV, who argues that they are not too good to be true, if you look at the costing per wafer, if you look at how much performance you're actually gaining over what AMD has already released, it's like a 30% bump and not something that's actually doubling anything. It's just reducing the size, a 30% bump, and that is quite big. But since we're used to the iterations of Intel, who's only bringing us 5% improvements every single year, AMD might actually look to do something completely different to offset the balance, if they can actually do it technologically, which we'll find out. By the time this video goes live, we have about another 30 hours until AMD's keynote. I'm excited for it. I want to see what they're bringing to the table. I am tempering all of my expectations here. I'm not necessarily sure it's going to play out the way we think it is. I just think that these rumors are super compelling. I would like to believe in AMD at this point. They have proven pretty strong with their previous Ryzen releases. They're 2 years in a row on impressing me with CPUs. They're 0 years in a row impressing me with GPUs, except for the 480, 580. That's just been a solid, it's just not impressive, but it's a good choice. It's just not exciting. With the Navi rumors especially, I'm not super hopeful for it. I always want to give AMD a super grain of salt with their GPU department, especially with how many people have left AMD to go work for Intel. It doesn't seem like they've retained a lot of the people who were actually working on these projects. So we'll see where it turns out, but that's what we're expecting from AMD. We've already got a couple of announcements. Let's keep on walking towards the people or the animals as we close off. That's what we're expecting from AMD. That's hopefully what they're gonna unveil during their keynote. We will be live streaming it here on the UFD Tech channel, so be sure to tune in. It's at 7 p.m. South African Standard Time, 9 a.m. Las Vegas time, which I believe is somewhere around noon Eastern. And so you guys can check out here the channel. We'll be streaming that live stream from Lisa Su here, as I said. Don't forget that this video was brought to you by FreshBooks, and if you want to support the UFD Tech channel directly, you can do so over on our Patreon, and hopefully we might have enough money to go to CES next year instead of doing it out in the wild. Although he's snorting at us. I kind of prefer this, to be honest, being snorted at by animals. It's kind of weird. So yeah, I'm Brett with the UFD Tech channel. Thank you for watching our remote coverage of CES, and I'll see your smiling faces again in the next video. Love you too. So what we have here are some buck